Tag TV, and Tag Radio. Technology now has a voice of innovation and information. Get it on www.tagtvonline.com. $100,000 in cash plus services valued at an additional $200,000 for a total grand prize of $300,000. It's the annual Georgia Research Alliance Technology Association of Georgia Business Launch Competition. This year, the GRA Tag Business Launch had a new pre-finals event called Fast Forward to Launch. Held earlier this month, the competing companies were invited to refine a 1-minute elevator pitch and have it taped in the Tag TV studios. All of the Fast Forward to Launch videos were then presented on the World Wide Web on a special Tag TV channel, where a People's Choice voting competition was held May 7th through May 9th. The top 2 companies receiving the most votes became wild card presenters in the semifinals of the grand prize competition. Fast Forward to Launch was a mega success, drawing over 12,600 views and 5,656 votes. First place vote getter, startup company Proper Notice. To make the wild card opportunity even more exciting and dramatic, Proper Notice not only made it to the semifinals, but has now been ultimately selected as one of the GRA Tag Business Launch finalists, as one of 4 in the June 4th competition for the $300,000 grand prize. Greetings, everyone. It's Tuesday, May 20th, 2008, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. With the excitement building to the big business launch June 4th finals, we Tech Talk with the president of Proper Notice, Henry Dan, a seasoned professional with over 30 years' experience in both the IT and leasing industry. From out of the running to running with the Final 4 for the ultimate GRA Tag Business Launch Grand Prize, Tino speaks with Proper Notice Startup President Henry Dan.
Henry, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk.
Hey, Tino, thanks. I appreciate you having me here.
Well, congratulations. This is becoming a Cinderella story here. You have made it all the way to the finals, and you made it in a way that we'll cover certainly during this conversation, but it's a little bit unorthodox. And first time we did Fast Forward to Launch, so it was terrific to see that had a bearing on this year's competition. I think our listeners, because you are a new company, would like to know a little bit about Proper Notice. So why don't you tell us about the company?
Thank you, Tino. Proper Notice is a penalty prevention service that keeps our clients from paying large penalties that are due to missed long-term notification requirements. Let me explain that a little bit. If all of the leasing people who leased equipment in the United States used our service, they would save $37 billion a year. Now, we obviously don't expect that to happen today, but that is a year-over-year savings. I have a consulting business. As Frank mentioned, I've been in the leasing business for about 30 years, the last 8 of which I switched over to representing lessees and their asset management structures, working with lessors. One of my clients, the company called the Parity Shops, you may know them. They're one of the largest concessionaires in the airports. They're about a $600 million company. They got into a dispute with a lessor where they missed the notification for one of their leases by 4 days, and as a result, it automatically renewed for a year, and they had to pay $450,000 additional that was obviously not budgeted or foreseen.
That's amazing.
And quite frankly, that was the genesis. I recognized that there were some leasing companies that had some onerous provisions, and there had to be a way for clients to not miss that kind of stuff over the long term. A couple of other examples. McKesson was one of my clients as well, one of a Fortune 15 healthcare company. They had been on a buying spree, and they had bought a company, which had bought a company, which had bought a company. And there were 3 leases that popped up. Again, 2 days after the notice, it was brought to our attention, hey, here's a problem. And those 3 leases had renewed just for 3 months, but it was $262,000 additional that had to be paid out. And some of you may remember in a different scenario, last year, the city of Milton incorporated, and there was a tax issue where the clerk of the city needed to give a piece of paper to the state of Georgia to recover $800,000 in money that had been collected by the state. And the clerk missed by 1 day. That $800,000 was forfeited, and that represented over 7% of the entire city of Milton's fiscal budget. So there are plenty of places out there where missing that notice has a negative financial and option contest for you. In particular, in the United States, there's over $600 billion leased every year, and that's where that $37 billion focus comes from.
Well, you'd think after all these years and all the years of leasing that companies would have come up with a way to have a fail-safe system where they would be notified, but that evidently is not the case.
One would think so. Some people have systems, some don't. Okay, typically the systems rely on people, some type of internal accounting system, their Outlook calendar, or their desk pad where they wrote a note to themselves.
Right.
But even so, that still results in that $37 billion a year additional loss. Now, there's reasons for that. People move, they leave, they get transferred to another location. Systems change, they become obsolete, or they're converted to something else and data is lost. Departments move responsibility. Hey, that's legal. No, that's purchasing. No, that's somebody else. And companies get sold and data gets lost. Now, my personal favorite is when the guy walks up and says, what about these leases? And the CFO says, what leases? I've never seen those before. And that's an indication that there's no one internally in corporations that are focused on long-term notification requirements.
And you have, and we don't want to steal all the thunder from the finals presentation, but you have a software that will work to help companies identify when their lease is coming due?
We have a software web-based delivery system designed to remind the clients in plenty of time for their critical path to take that action before that notice is required. Now, we deliver it via the web, email, text messages, voice messages, and registered letter. But the key is that we have taken a bunch of people, attacked a very specific problem in a very coordinated way with a lot of process mapping and gapping the holes to make sure that that's the one thing we do. We call it timely, targeted action to make sure you remember.
Well, we're happy to have you in the Business Lunch competition. I'm interested personally in how you heard about it and what kind of experience it's been like for you and the company.
Well, I thank Serendipity for having us find it. One of my partners, who I'll talk about in a minute, Charlie Bejeez, is a Georgia Tech graduate, and he got an email about a year ago about the GRA tag contest, and we decided, you know what, we ought to go over there and find out just what's going on. Maybe we'll learn something. Maybe we'll network with some people, but it was really just kind of a let's go see what's over there. Well, we were absolutely amazed at the resources and the availability of people, places to really help out and do this. We figured, okay, let's go ahead and try this. We probably won't win. We're not super high tech. We don't have the greatest new gadget in the world, but it would provide us a footpath, a discipline, and some time constraints that would help us march along on our business plan as well. Then the people that you meet and the opportunity for growth are absolutely outstanding. So we were just thrilled to be a part of this. It's been a lot of fun too. That's the extra benefit.
Well, you obviously had some fun with the Fast Forward video competition, and for those 5,650 people that watched and voted, it's actually more than that came to the site. I think it was over 10,000 that came to the site, as was said earlier. But they enjoyed yours. You became the number one and the wild card, got an automatic pass into the semifinals. How did you come up with the idea in terms of the way that you put your program together to present, and you just had 60 seconds, right?
And that was the real challenge. 60 seconds is a difficult, short period of time to explain the concept of what we do because it's just not intuitive. It may represent $37 billion a year, but you got to explain it. And we thought we would have some difficulty in trying to give an elevator pitch in that 60 seconds. So we decided to write a couple of real-life examples of what it would be like if you were caught in that, and we actually came up with two. One, I was practicing in front of a mirror with different excuses for my boss of all the reasons why I didn't remember to do what it was, but that was going to be a little difficult to do. So then we decided to have a phone conversation where I'm explaining to my boss that we just found out we have to pay all this extra money for the following reasons. Now, when we were getting ready to do that, Frank asked me if I was ready for my elevator pitch, and I said, well, I'm not really doing an elevator pitch. We're kind of doing an example. And he said, oh, so you're doing a skit. And I went, oh, no, we're not doing a skit. That's juvenile. And then I explained what I was doing, and he said, you're doing a skit. And I went, yes, we did. Well, apparently that skit worked for us really well because we did win. And as you mentioned earlier, we had not made the semifinals on the strength and the basis of our business plan. Maybe we're just not good business plan writers yet. So that wild card opportunity was really the story that gave us the opportunity to present in front of the judges as one of the 15 companies, and we were fortunate enough to now be one of the 4. We really do feel like a Cinderella team.
Well, it is a terrific story, and just for the listeners, the way this worked is we started out with 75 companies, and 45, the 75 had to just submit a one-page executive summary about what their idea was, and then our friends at the ATDC reviewed those, and we provided some feedback, and we invited all the companies, but some with more enthusiasm than others, to come in and submit their full business plan, which 45 companies did. And then we invited those companies who wanted to put together a 1-minute video, and 25 of those companies put together a video. And the semifinalists were selected by ATDC and TAG and the Georgia Research Alliance and there were 13 of those companies, and then we added 2, the first and second place winners of the video competition, giving us 15 companies. And of that, 4 were selected for the finals, which will be held at IBM on June 4th, and that is open to the public. And we already have a number of people signed up to hear the final 4 present in front of a very prestigious set of judges. So. Dan, in addition to what you're looking at as a first run, I know a lot of companies then want to expand their market. Are there other markets that you would consider applying the solution to?
Oh, definitely. Anywhere there's a long-term notification requirement that has negative consequences. So we're going out to attack the leasing market because we know it so well, and that's our first engine run. But we've designed a system that we use that is incredibly multidimensional. So with very little effort, we can turn that to other markets, which we have looked at. For example, environmental compliance. One of our team members works for a large environmental compliance firm, and we see the opportunity there. Software licensing, inspections and warranties, and general corporate contract compliance, which came out of the semifinals. During the Q&A, several of the very highly placed members of the judging panel had suggested that was an area in their corporation that they would like to see this applied to, so we're certainly taking a look at that. And then there are other markets that as we continue to move forward, we will explore, like the real estate market, the insurance renewal, and local, state, and federal government are all opportunities there as well. Anywhere that there's a long-term notice requirement, and that's key. When you're looking at 3, 4, 5 years out, what one person or one system can you absolutely determine is going to make sure you don't forget that? And that's what we're focused on, and the only thing we're focused on.
So if you could look out a year from now, where would you like to see your company be?
I'd like to see substantial sales and success in the equipment lease market that we've done, and the opportunity to go out to some of the other markets and work there. We have some very big long-term plans for this. If it takes off the way we believe it can be, it can morph into a much greater deal than just business to business. There's opportunity for other things, but a little early to talk about those.
Well, we hope that you certainly have a 1 in 4 shot at winning the competition. And again, to remind the listeners, the winners get $100,000 in cash and $200,000 in what we call a suite of services. And the suite of services was designed by the Georgia Research Alliance and by Technology Association of Georgia to provide the winning company with everything they need. Near everything they need. They certainly need the idea and the talent of the team, but to support them and helping them to grow and become a strong company in Georgia. And maybe, Dan, related to this, have you found, certainly as a burgeoning entrepreneur here, I'm sure you've heard, if you haven't experienced it directly, but we understand that the seed funding category, this early stage category, is pretty challenging to secure. What are your thoughts on that?
Our initial look, in fact, when we went to the very first GRA tag and you had some VC people talk, like a lot of burgeoning companies, we went, hey, let's go get $5 or $10 million from VCs and go about our merry way. And after we came back, one of the first things we learned is that, you know what, we don't necessarily want VC money up front if we can bootstrap it ourselves because of the overall equity ownership. In our particular circumstance, we had maintained that. However, in going through this business launch competition, we've had people come to us and start saying, we'd be interested in investing in your company. Well, we recognize bootstrap is fine, and we're all doing sweat equity, which is great, But in order to attack the market in a first mover status, it may be very helpful to be able to get some of the seed money to be able to do things, basic things like more market research and a marketing online or a marketing program to go forward with. So it's important to do that. And the beauty, quite frankly, of the GRA tag contest is that it doesn't cost you anything to get that money. You don't have to give up anything other than the ability to work with ATDC and GRA and tag, which is not giving up, that's gaining. So that's the real benefit of doing this. We certainly would be interested in talking to people who want to give us money, but even if we don't, we're moving forward with our business because we think it's a solid program.
So there you have it. We've been talking with Henry Dan, who is the founder of Proper Notice, one of the finalists in the GRA Tag Business Launch Competition. The finals will be held at IBM on June 4th in the morning, and there's breakfast and lunch provided. IBM is sponsoring the breakfast. So you've gotten a taste of this today, and we hope that our listeners will come and join us on June 4th. Dan, Henry, thank you for joining me on Tech Talk.
Tino, it was a real pleasure. Thanks for having me.